long one, so you might want to keep your seats on this one. The Holy Gospel according to John. Now, a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped her feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus: Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of Man may be glorified through it. Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 more days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, Let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you, and are you going there again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them. After saying this, he told them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to waken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be all right. Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought he was merely referring to sleep. Then Jesus told them, Lazarus is dead. For your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Thomas, who is called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, Let us go also, that we may die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, The teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her were also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. Some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man had kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, already there is a stench because he's been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me. But I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloths, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, Unbind him and let him go. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in it. The gospel of the Lord. What a passage. It's one of those passages, one of those episodes that just appears across Western literature in so many great ways. It appears in songs. It appears, I don't know, not that many years ago, a band put out a song called Lazarus. It's something that has entered into our, as Jung would call it, our collective unconscious. Well, John 11 stands at a decisive turning point in the fourth gospel narrative. Historically, the gospel or the narrative here reflects a late first century Johannine community that's negotiating conflict with synagogue authorities and with articulating what we would now call a high Christology. A high Christology, meaning an exalted and believable theology of who Christ was, not just an itinerant preacher or prophet or miracle worker. No, the Word made flesh. We also see in this narrative a context in which Jesus, his signs are not merely miracles, but they're revelations. They're acts that disclose his identity and provokes division in people. The Lazarus story functions as a sign, an important paradigm shifting, as we used to say, sign that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. It's a narrative that actually kind of triggers the final plot against Jesus. In the synoptic gospels, it was the cleansing of the temple that kind of was the catalyst for the final plot against Jesus. In John, it's the raising of a dead man. This story has been shaped by the artistry of John's narrative, a lot of symbolism, excellent dialogue, dramatic tension, all the things that a good story needs. Some recent scholarship reads the passage through the lens of what they call post-normal times, moments of uncertainty, moments of complexity and crisis. This is highlighting how John's community used this story to navigate the times of cultural, political, religious instability. We see a dramatic progression here. It unfolds in, again, movements like a great symphony. There's the illness of Lazarus, the delay of Jesus. Then there's the encounter with Martha and Mary. Then there's the sign at the tomb. And then the aftermath. Verse 45. John uses suspense. Jesus delays intentionally. He uses symbolic misunderstanding, sleep versus death. He uses this revelation through dialogue, Martha's confession, and then what she learns out of it. As I told you so many times, that we learn by confrontation with God. Think about the great figures of the Hebrew Bible who confronted God, and what did they find out? Or here's Martha confronting Jesus. She finds out he is the resurrection and the life. And then we have kind of dramatic staging. Here's the stone, the command to move the stone, remove the stone, the unbinding, all cool stuff. This is one of the most artfully structured narratives in the whole gospel. And some people have described it as the literary pinnacle of John. Well, there's some key themes here. One is Jesus' delay. Why in the world? Wait. It's not indifference, but it's a narrative device served to reveal the glory of God. Jesus' sovereignty over death, which has got to give them some hope that if he can raise Lazarus from the dead, then he can too. And there's this theme in John that Revelation unfolds on divine timetables, not human timetables. Everybody said, you got to get to Lazarus. Come quickly. And he delays. And by the time he gets there, Martha tells him he's been dead 4 days. Martha's confession. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Again, one of my, I know. I always say this or that is my favorite, and this is one of those. Martha articulates one of the highest confessions of Christ in the gospel, in all of the gospels. You are the Messiah, the Son of God. Now, that actually parallels Peter's confession in the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I should say Mark, Matthew, and Luke. But it places a woman at the center of this theological articulation. That's an important detail for feminist readings of it. Let's pause there for a second. Feminist readings. There are, and I've said this before, the readings through other lenses than my own. Look, I'm just a white boy. I wasn't raised, in privilege, or I should say in wealth. And so I have a rather narrow reading on my own. But goodness gracious, early in my life, I started reading other viewpoints. Black theology through the writings of James Cone and others. His book, God of the Oppressed, made me look at things differently. Not only look at the New Testament and the Hebrew Bible differently, made me look at life differently. There was liberation theology through guys like Gustavo Gutierrez and the work of Archbishop Oscar Romero, saint and martyr. And there was the feminist readings. And some of my acquaintances, I won't call them friends, some of my acquaintances were like, oh, dear God, everything is about women. They just want to talk about, well, yeah. Nobody else was. White boys weren't doing it. Looking at these moments when women step to the center. Martha, here in John. All of those readings are valid. All of those readings are important. And it gets us out of our own categories and helps us to see through the eyes of others, which is so important. There is a series of books or a trend where they were writing, these authors were writing the life of Jesus. Well, you had Ernest Renan, who Jesus looks like this, well, he looks like a Frenchman. You had Schweitzer and others. Jesus looks like a logical, rational German. You had Endo, the Japanese author, made Jesus look like a Zen master. And they're all correct. Truly, Jesus is all things for all people. We got to look at viewpoints outside of our own, even outside of our own religious tradition. Not everything has to be Lutheran. Not everything has to be Protestant. Sometimes not everything needs to be from a Christian lens. I sidetracked. So Martha's dialogue with Jesus reveals a shift from this future eschatology, when she says, I know he will rise on the last day, which shows something about her too, because that idea that there would be a resurrection on the last day, that was something that the Pharisees taught and believed. Martha's not some illiterate person. She's aware of what's going on around her. She's aware of the beliefs and the debates that are going on. I know that he'll rise on the last day. And that shifts to this eschatology, this belief in the end or what happens at the end, to something that's realized right now. The hearing of Jesus saying, I am the resurrection and the life. Then the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. Oh, that's how it appears in a lot of our translations. The one we read today was Jesus began to weep or something like that. Just two Greek words. The shortest verse in the Bible, packed with meaning. It tells us of Jesus' full humanity, the emotional depth that's there. And it kind of counters the Docetic tendencies. The Docetists were these guys who were condemned at the Council of Chalcedon in 451 because they just believed that the body of Jesus was an illusion. No, it says Jesus was emotional. He wept. Also showing this divine empathy, not this stoic detachment. The liberation theologians would emphasize that Jesus is showing solidarity with human sufferings. Yes. Would I have gotten that before reading the liberationists? Probably not. Who are we kidding? Certainly not. He stands in solidarity with what we are suffering. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's line, only the suffering God can help. And this divine pathos is a critique of systems that devalue grief. Then there's the sign itself, verses 38 through 44, the raising of Lazarus. It's the seventh and climactic sign in John. It's a symbolic act that's pointed to Jesus' own resurrection. And it's a public revelation that divides belief from unbelief. That command, unbind him and let him go. That's been read symbolically as liberation from death's power, communal responsibility, where the communal or the community participation in releasing people from what binds them. The resurrection of Lazarus is unique to John. The synoptics don't mention it, which has led to debate. Some argue that it reflects a historical memory that's preserved only in John's communities. Others see it as a theological narrative that was crafted to reveal Jesus' identity. And the attempts to harmonize this with Luke 16 or identify Mary with Mary Magdalene are pretty unconvincing. The symbolism, the theological construction. Lazarus is a symbol of the believer whom Jesus calls from death to life. The narrative is this proleptic sign of Jesus' own death and resurrection. The story is reflecting John's community and their conflict with the Judean authorities, who then respond with signs of hostility. And it centers on Martha and Mary. Now that's very meaningful for both feminist theology and liberation theology. Both women speak theologically. Both women express lament and faith and agency. And they serve as conversational partners for the purpose of revealing Christ. This narrative elevates women as bearers of theological insight. And the honesty of their lament becomes a model of faithful protest. I don't mean protest like carrying signs in front of the Capitol. I mean protest to God. And the story resonates with liberation theology through Jesus' solidarity with the grieving, with the command to unbind as a metaphor for liberation from oppressive structures, the exposure of systems represented by the authorities that respond to life-giving acts with violence. Jesus is revealed as the resurrection and the life, the one who holds power over death, the one who reveals God's glory through compassionate presence. And John blends this future hope, a final resurrection, with the present transformation, life right now, through relationship with Jesus. And the story teaches John's community to trust Jesus even in the middle of crisis, to participate in liberating one another. You unbind him. And to expect opposition when embodying life-giving practices. John 11, 1 through 45, our text, is masterfully creative narrative, a masterfully creative narrative that functions on at least 4 levels. A sign revealing Jesus' identity, a turning point in the plot, a pastoral word to a community that's facing crisis, and as a theological meditation on life, death, grief, and hope. So many things that we don't have in our dogmas, in our theologies, that can only be expressed through hope. And like Paul said in Romans, hope won't lead you astray. Thanks be to God. Love you all.